in the body?
I would call it a symptom. If someone has a liver problem, I know they have anger issues or guilt issues. The heart is about love, the pancreas is about betrayal. There are energetic parasites. We call them shadow parasites because they behave just like normal parasites, but they're in the shadows. People can't see them. And once they're in, they're in. And they will talk to the host and change their thoughts. They'll get them addicted to sugar, cocaine, pornography, sex. Because if the person's addicted, they're going to be in a state of panic, anxiety, addiction, like they're chasing all the time, they're never present, they're never settled. And that energy is beautiful for a parasite.
Jerry Sargeant, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Aaron. It's a pleasure, brother.
What is disease in the body from your perspective, Jerry?
Disease in the body for me I would call it a symptom. So if someone has a liver problem, I know they have anger issues or guilt issues, or maybe both. And so the body is just screaming out and saying to the human being who's got the issue with the liver, please have a look at this. But most human beings have never been taught how to read the body. So they go to the doctors, get some pills, injections, cream, whatever it is for any particular injury, illness, disease. And, for us, we'll go in and look at the trigger point. What created that anger? What created the fear, wherever it is in the body? Like every single body part means something. The heart is about love, the pancreas is about betrayal, like everything means something. The neck is about being stubborn and rigid. So we'd go in and find out the trigger point of the disease or the symptom, and we'd shift it.
You mentioned before we were talking about how therapy oftentimes goes into childhood, and the work that you do, I'd imagine, probably touches on childhood as well, but also goes beyond that. What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, therapy is, a word kind of in this kind of, I would say, in this kind of third, fourth dimensional space. I mean, there are therapists that take people through therapy sessions. For me, again, I would come back to symptoms. There's something that caused the disease, the symptom, something that created it, and there's a different reality. If you go down the medical road, they look inside a kind of a problem and solution set system. So you go to a doctor and the doctor says, oh, what's going on? I've got a rash on my arm. So, okay, let me look in my medical book and let me provide a solution, which is a cream or some drugs. And the human being may relieve that symptom, but most of the time that rash will come back later on because they've not taken away the trigger point, the creation point, the thing that started it, the original anger, fear, guilt, trauma, whatever it was. So what we do is we go into the deepest part of the biological computer, the body and the brain, and we find out what created it. And childhood, it can be a good starting point. But what we'll try and do is go as far down the timeline as we can. So whenever we go into a healing session, what I would always say, I'd ask this question: please show me something I don't know to help me facilitate the healing of this incredible human being. And then the quantum field would open up. I'd start to see information. And my aim would be to go as far down the timeline to find the deepest root trigger in space-time, which could be 1,000 years ago, 3 million years ago, could be on another planet, a different timeline, or multiple timelines. And we'd find that reality field and then change it. Because the body and brain is a biological computer. So when you go into the back end of the system and you change the code, things shift on the front end. Now, it can happen in childhood. The original trigger point could be childhood, but I've worked with thousands and thousands of people, and we've trained thousands of people who've worked with thousands and thousands of people. And childhood is like tip of the iceberg. When you start going back into past lives, which aren't really past, they're only past in this kind of linear time construct that we use here on planet Earth. There's no future, there's no past. Once you get out of the body and into the field, everything's now. So we'd want to go as far into the deep now as we could and make changes. And it's like a website. Imagine you've got a website that's yellow and you want to change it to green. You're going to get a computer programmer. They're going to change the code in the back end, and it's going to change from yellow to green on the front end. This is no different.
Hmm. I heard you telling a story about an angry old man that was, deceased, that was in a house and an address that you were in the past, and you called someone and they helped support, kind of remediate the situation with that. And you're mentioning past life regressions in that story. Can you share that story or a story like that? And I think it's very interesting, the idea of energies in a house and energies, you know, that reside within or around materials, and just how that works, like kind of like the invisible plane of reality. Because you can walk into a room and you can feel a way, and most people probably wouldn't be able to put language to it other than like a vibe. Is there such a thing as that vibe being actual, like a consciousness still in the room?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's an interesting story. I ended up in a house with my ex-wife and two children, and I just lost the business. So everything kind of folded. And this was like a catalyst for a big transformation for me. We ended up moving into this rented accommodation, and this is back in like 2005-ish. And it was the time that I still watched TV, because I remember I was watching TV one night. It was a Sunday, and my ex-wife comes downstairs and she looks petrified. And I looked at her and I was like, "What's going on?" And she said, every time I close my eyes and I hear these I see these dark images when I'm pushing the children down the road in the pushchair in the morning. Something's trying to make me push my car into the central reservation, and I looked at her and I thought, this sounds crazy, but I said, "I love you. What do you want to do about this?" So she phoned her friend that was a priest. So this lady priest comes around our house. She's putting crosses up, she's dousing the house in all this energy. And I'd never been exposed to anything like this. So I'm sat there thinking this is like something out of the poltergeist or something. Look, this is crazy. And anyway, she calms my ex-wife down. She goes to bed. And the next day I went to see a friend of mine. I said, "Listen, bro," I said, "something weird happened last night." And I told him the story. He said, "You need to speak to this lady." So he gave me the name and a telephone number of a lady who had a past life regression business, but I didn't know she had a past life regression. I'd never even heard of past life regression. But I phoned her up and she didn't answer, and she called me back a little while later, and she said, "What's going on?" I said, "This happened last night, blah, blah, blah." She said, "Where do you live?" And the only part of the address I gave her was 361 Richmond Road. I didn't give her the town name, the city, anything. And she said, "Hold on a minute." And the phone went quiet. And I'm just waiting. She goes, "Have you been knocking some walls down in the house?" I said, "Well, actually, we just rented the place. But yeah, the previous owners clearly built an extension." She goes, "Yeah, you've got an angry old man in your house." I was like, "What? An angry old man?" She said, "Yeah, you've got an angry old man." I said, "Okay, well, let's pretend there is an angry old man. Like, what can we do about it?" And she goes, "Oh, I'll get rid of him for you." We were living in London at the time, and she was in a place right the other side of the country, like a good 3-4 hour drive away. And she said, "Don't worry, I can do it from here." I said, "When you coming round?" And she was like, "No, no, 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 I'll do it from here." I thought, this is weird. Anyway, I just kind of left it with her. So I go home, speak to Laura, and I said to Laura, "Listen, I know I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I spoke to a lady last night. Sorry, a lady today about what happened last night. And she reckons there's an angry old man in the house." And she turns around to me, Laura, and goes, "I know, I've seen him." She said at night time I could see his hand in the bed and just different things. I was like, "What? You've seen him?" So I thought, okay, you've seen him. This lady that we've never met has seen him. So there must be some truth, because you've never met each other, you've never spoken, and you've both told me the same story. So anyway, I phoned this lady back up and I said, "I don't know what you do, but I've got to come and see you." I was like a dog with a bone. So I went to see her, and she had this past life regression business. She worked for Scotland Yard in the psychic division, solving crimes and stuff like that. She ended up becoming my teacher for, like, I don't know, several years, and she taught me how to remote view, bring my light out of my body and travel, and yeah, just communicate with the spirit world and get information. But coming back to your kind of question, like there are portals all over the place. There are ley lines. There are grid points. Spirits travel through ley lines. Spirits travel through portals. You know, if you've got a house that's let's say 200 years old and it's never been cleaned energetically, stuff hangs around. Like where we live here in Wales, it's an old barn. It's really old. When we moved in here, I could see straight away that there was a young boy that had been hanged in here, like a couple of hundred years ago, whatever it was. And we had all these flies in the kitchen by the window. And whenever you get flies, like loads of them in a building, it's a telltale sign of either some kind of child sacrifice or some kind of murder or something that's gone on, and that energy's hanging around. So it took us a couple of months because this was some really heavy stuff. It was built on Druid land. There was loads of things that had taken place here that weren't very savory. So it took us a while to clean the place right up. But energetically now, it's awesome. But yeah, energy hangs around. It's stagnant. It travels, and having like basic energetic protocols for your own body, for your home, for your business, and all that is, I feel, mission critical.
For a skeptical person, what are the mechanics of energy lingering in a place?
When you say the mechanics, what do you mean, really?
How could you break that down in a way for someone that's skeptical? Is there some way to be able, because I think intuitively, like as you're telling the stories, I'm getting goosebumps and like all that stuff. So like it in my body, it definitely resonates with something. But for someone that's very scientific, very reductionist, very materialistic, is there any way to be able to convey the concept of someone, a boy was hung in this place 180 years ago, and the energy of that still lingers and exists here? If someone's like, is there any other way to be able to explain like that? That's what I mean by like the mechanics,
Yeah,
like the
yeah, yeah.
materialistic mechanics of that. Like,
I
how does
mean,
that work?
even if you just get your palm and you just gently rub the inside of it for 4 or 5 seconds, and then put your hands together, like you can feel the energy. Some people are more sensitive to it. Some people are less sensitive. And when you start to live in a really, really, really present state of awareness, when you've got a clean diet, when you do breath work like we did at the start, you meditate, you activate your pineal gland, which is like it's like a stargate. It's an antenna. It decodes information from the space. So when you start to practice this work, which is what we teach people, then you can go into a space and you can really, really feel. I mean, most people will have had a time in their life where they've gone into a room and they've felt really great, really happy. They've gone into another room and they feel, something's not right here. That's energy. That's your intuition picking up on the room, picking up on the field, and absolutely everything is connected. I mean, if you break it down scientifically, like they've done tests where they get a cell in New York and they split it and they take one piece of the cell to London and they keep one in New York. And they do things to the cell in London or New York and it happens to the other cell in the other country because everything's connected. Like if I'm working on someone at distance, I can bring up a hologram of them, quantumly entangle that hologram with you or whoever it is on the planet, and I can work on it here in my space. But what happens to the hologram happens to the person physically in real time. Yeah, quantum entanglement is how we do our work, but everybody's picked up on energy at some point. So you could go into a room and feel a bit fearful. It doesn't mean that you're fearful. It means that there's fear in the room, not necessarily in the space, but maybe within some other humans, and you're just picking up on you're feeding into their field, and you're just feeling what they're feeling.
And it also could be projection.
It could be projection, absolutely.
There could be the potential of walking in and you have a reminder of something that pertains only to you and you alone, that has nothing to do with the room around you and the rest of the people's experiences, but it reminds you of something from the past that suddenly you project a new definition of what's happening or what the experience feels like. Meanwhile, everyone else is totally clueless to what's happening. It's like if you were abused or something and someone puts their hand up for a high five and you detect danger from that person could have very, only benign intentions for you, but you project that onto them. That's the hard thing, I think, within the realm of the invisible, is kind of like, what is imagination, what is projection, what is objective truth? Is it some kind of blurry in between all the time? If you imagine something, does that just make it real?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, imagination is reality. Like if I see something in the field, it's there. People say, "Oh, I had this brilliant idea, and I've created this new space rocket, or I've created a new phone, or I've designed a new train, or I've designed this." It's something new, but no one ever really invents anything. All people do is download from the field. So they have a download, then they create it, and they call it an invention. But no one ever invents anything. And I think the other thing to point out as well, like when you go into a room, there's mirrors too, mirrors and triggers. So you can walk up to another human being and they behave a certain way, they speak in a certain way, and that mirrors back to you something that you need to work on. It happens all the time, but most people don't want to look at their own shadows. So a lot of people, oh my God, it's all love and light. And most of those people are trying to avoid their shadows. I think real true embodiment is when you bring the light and the shadow into equilibrium, into that balancing point. And people in our environment are the perfect mirrors and triggers to help us see the parts of us that we need to work on. But most people, instead of embracing it, they run.
Well, it's very convenient to blame, and it feels easy, but it's actually the hardest thing to do, because then you're just going to perpetuate where you're stuck.
Absolutely. And it's going to amplify the next time,
Yeah.
so you're better off just diving in and getting it done.
Yeah, there's like I had someone tell me one time, never waste a trigger. I was like, that's pretty good. I like that. If something is quote unquote triggering for you, it's an indication that there's some kind of resonance about that in your system. And like an example would be like, if someone called you fat, you'd be like, okay, like cool, like whatever. But if there was something that you actually still were holding on to some insecurity about, and they started talking even about the thing, maybe not even necessarily in relation to you, but you might feel your system start to go, oh, it might kind of contract a little bit. It's like, like there's actually the exact place that it would support you most to lean directly into. And I think the sooner a person can start to adapt that as a mindset for just the way they approach uncomfortable conversations or uncomfortable things that they see, or ways that they project out judgment into the world or any of that, I think probably the sooner they would, I don't know, get closer to like being free, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of my biggest things as a child was rejection. I was put up for fostering and adoption, and I always felt rejected. I found it really difficult when I was a kid. And then coming out into the world and doing this kind of stuff, especially energy healing, people. I remember when we first started Star Magic in 2016, loads of doctors made some websites and they had like lightning coming out of my hand and they're calling me Harry Potter and all this kind of stuff. And, it was at first I was like, I had to breathe, but I just kept leaning into it and leaning into it. And now, like, I just don't feel rejection anymore, but that's just by just walking in, walking in, walking in, walking in, and also looking into my own self and seeing where these triggers came from, because they came from childhood, but they were much, much deeper in other realities. So it was, years of doing work, drinking ayahuasca, different things, and yeah, kind of cracked the code.
What happens when the things that we hold on to from the past stay present in our bodies, like the contractions or the resentments or the shames or the angers or any of the things that cause the body to close or create, maybe you could say, like density in the body, stuckness in the body, bracing in the body, armoring in the body? What happens to the body when the body holds on to those patterns for longer than it's serving them? Because those patterns probably serve them in the moment to brace for impact or protect themselves. But if they forgot or never felt resourced or safe enough to be able to then put the armor down, what happens to the body?
I mean, at some point, the body's going to become acidic. When a traumatic event happens in someone's life, let's say it's just in this reality, and they get angry or they're in guilt or they're in fear or whatever it is, there's some kind of adrenaline spike in the body. And then what happens is people, they don't deal with that. They don't transmute it. They don't release it in whatever way that is. And so it stays in the cells. And then a month later, 4 weeks later. I mean, they're playing this stuff out in their head constantly. And so they kind of add in more of this adrenaline on an unconscious level. And then, every now and again, something else will happen in their life, like another mirror or another trigger will come in and they'll respond in the same way, either anger or fear or guilt or whatever it is. And so it adds more adrenaline. Eventually, the body becomes acidic and it starts turning into some form of disease, you know, mental, emotional, physical. And if the human being doesn't look at it, it's going to get worse and worse. And the symptoms going to get louder and louder and louder. And most people don't really deal with it until it gets really serious. Oh my God, I've got liver cancer. Oh my God, I've got this. Oh my God, my eyesight's gone. And that's when people start to look. But if we do the work now, like, we don't need to be ill to get healthy. We should be just getting healthy and be healthy 24/7, 365 by, using breathwork, meditation, exercise, cold showers, whatever it is, like mixing all these ingredients together, intermittent fasting, and people can stay tip top. And then these things are never going to creep in. But most people don't. They wait till it's kind of almost too late. And then it's a race then to save themselves.
Yeah. When someone is weak, or when someone is damaged, or someone, holds that belief about themselves, or they're victimized, or any of that, uh, in my perspective and experience, that attracts um, literal and figurative parasites to them. It's as though it's like there's a chink in the armor of the individual, and the energies in the forms of it could be very specifically like a person. If there's like an abusive partner, they probably would find another partner who would receive that abuse, or maybe even believe at a subtle, like a subconscious level, they deserve abuse, perhaps. I believe is how that works to some degree. Obviously there's nuance to everything. What is a what does it mean to be um, to have like an energetic parasite, or like certain language that gets shared in kind of the new age world, or um, like, are we hosts to energies that are not our own, and what does that mean?
You know what? This is a really good question, and it's a massive, massive subject, and you can go down so many rabbit holes on it. But yeah, I mean, there are energetic parasites. We call them shadow parasites because they behave just like normal parasites, but they're in the shadows. People can't see them. Some people can, but most people can't. You've got like caterpillars in the jungle, and these parasites get into the caterpillars, take over their consciousness, take over the host, and they make the caterpillars climb to the top of the tallest tree. And then when the caterpillars get up there, they explode. And all of the gunk and the juice goes over the leaves and on the ground, and other caterpillars come and eat it. And then it goes into them, and then more caterpillars climb up the tree, and then they explode. And that's how the parasite grows and expands. Like, the parasite doesn't really think too much. It just has this like natural desire to survive and to expand. So we as human beings, some of us, and actually, I would say around at least 30% of the human population, I know that's what it was a couple of years back, have these energetic parasites. And what happens is when a human being is in a state of a low vibration, which again could be fear, guilt, some kind of trauma, a wife that's been abused by a husband, or, there's some kind of trauma and a little child's died and the mum and the dad and they're in pieces. A lot of people are like, just help me. Some people are like praying to God, whatever it is, but people are reaching out and they don't even realize who they're asking for help from. And this invisible space is so full. It's full of geometry, full of mathematics, full of code. It's also full of interdimensional beings on a variety of different scales. And so when someone's reaching out for assistance, help, these parasites are like, we can help you, we can help you. And they don't, the human being doesn't even realize they're having this kind of unconscious conversation. And the parasite worms their way in. And once they're in, they're in. And they will talk to the host and change their thoughts. They'll get them addicted to sugar, cocaine, pornography, sex. I mean, all different things, whatever they can get them addicted to, food, coffee. Because if the person's addicted, they're going to be in a state of panic, anxiety, addiction, like they're chasing all the time. They're never present, they're never settled. And that energy is beautiful for a parasite. If they can tip that parasite into fear, if the parasite can tip the human into fear, then it's the best ever. And that's why there's so much stuff on our news stations and in the world about fear. I mean, you got everyone's talking about World War III at the moment. You know, I always think it's world love one. You know, we should be thinking about love instead of fear. You know, and changing the perception and changing the focus. But when a human being is in a state of fear, these things are feeding, and these shadow parasites have a hierarchical system. And so if you remove them, which we do all the time, we have a thing on our website, Shadow Parasite Cleanse. We train people on our level one training. We spend a whole day on this because it's so important. And even in one day, you only scratch the surface, just all the basics. Um, but yeah, they take over the host, and if the host isn't aware, they'll just railroad the host and completely control the host's life. The host will be like a remote control, like a robot, and the parasite will just be doing what it wants. And sometimes you get multiple parasites in one human being. Yeah.
Yeah, I've experienced that being around drug addiction and seeing the body of the host of the person um, feels like the spirit has left their body, or the spirit's like so covered with all of the energy of the parasite in this case, like the addiction, that um, yeah, it's like the parasite will choke the host out so much that it can just barely survive. And then I think something that's kind of interesting with a parasite is they wouldn't want to kill the host. They want to keep the host alive enough to do their bidding and keep on eating burritos and keep on, going to work and all of that. Because the parasite doesn't want to kill the host, because then it kills their home.
Yeah.
It's fucking
I
creepy.
remember like back in 2016, it was when we first started Star Magic, and me and two of my friends, we went to this Mind Body Spirit Festival in England, in Birmingham. And we've got a stand selling some books, and I was giving some taster session healings, and we see this like woman. She's walking down the kind of like gangway, and she's massive, and she's boom, boom, boom. She was huge, her hands like shovels and big shoulders. And she walked up to me, right up into my face. She put two fingers in her mouth, ripped her cheek right back, and she goes, "Fuck you." And she looked into my eyes, and it was like she had to really battle to get to our stand because this thing was trying to stop her getting there. And anyway, we sat her down, and I took one parasite out of her throat, another one out of her heart, and her hands went slender. Her shoulders kind of went back to feminine, and she got up, and it was like the most bizarre thing ever, you know. I'd only really removed a couple of parasites by then, and it was bonkers. I remember another time, even crazier. This was, I don't know, a few years back. I was doing a workshop, and my son and my daughter with me, and another friend, and there was a lady that was coming from Norway to England, and I'd worked with her before, and I knew that she had parasites, but loads of them, like her body was riddled with them. And I said, "Listen, come to this workshop, and I promise you'll walk away parasite free." Anyway, it was a 2-day workshop. She didn't turn up on the first day, and her son phoned and said, "Has my mum got there okay?" I said, "Nah, she's not turned up." He said, "Well, I stuck her on the plane. No one knew what happened to her." The next day, Sunday, we were finishing at 5, 6 o'clock. The doors just fly open about an hour and a half before the event finished, and she's dragging her suitcase across the wooden floor. One of her legs is kind of scraping, and she's in a bad way. I said, "Listen," I said, "just sit down. Okay, we got another meditation. We're going to finish." So she sat down at the at the back, and we had to get out of there straight away after. So because the cleaners were coming in. So there was a hotel down the road. So what I did is I booked her into a hotel, and I went down there with, I think with my daughter, my son, and about 8 other ladies. They all came down with me. So me, my kids stayed outside, but me and these 8 ladies, we all go into this hotel room, and all you can hear is like moaning noises, shouting, screaming. It must have sounded like an orgy from the outside. But we laid this woman down on the bed, and we're literally taking out all these parasites, one after the other. Her legs are smashing up and down. She's screaming and writhing. We're kind of pinning her shoulders down. It took us about an hour or so, but we got everything out of her and then sent her home in a really good way. But yeah, I got so many stories about these things, crazy stories.
I've experienced a I don't know what the term for it is exactly, but there's a particular type of I don't know, education shamanism where they teach the shaman how to remove these energetic parasites from the body, and the parasites materialize into a thing. It's usually whatever, like a rusted nail or a cricket or a, some kind of something, a stick, whatever. Um, and so I had the experience of a gal sucking a energetic parasite out of me at like 4 in the morning after an ayahuasca ceremony. And she went through a whole big ordeal of an experience, and she fainted, and is a whole thing. And I tend to have, I'm kind of 50-50, skeptical and open. I think that I wonder sometimes, I think a shaman can be engaging in like tricks, that tricks are also can be valuable, because it can create like a placebo or perhaps a nocebo. So the actual materialization of that cricket creature that was pulled out of my shoulder, 7 years ago in the jungle at 4 a.m. What do you think about
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
that?
we're in Yosemite about a year and a half ago up in the mountains, and we were doing a 10-day ayahuasca retreat.
Hmm.
And there was a lady, and her husband worked for Al Salamo, like where they do experiments on the ETs and stuff. And she's in the middle of this ceremony, and she's behaving very strangely. And I looked, and I could see um, she was pregnant, and she had an alien baby inside of her. So anyway, we got her in the middle, and my son was like the midwife, and we like her belly was big, you know, and so we're delivering this thing out from her private parts, and like her belly just goes like all the way down, completely flat, and we deliver this thing, and these Arcturians came in and they took the baby away, and yeah, took it into some kind of like healing chamber and took care of it.
This
Yeah,
is literally happening.
yeah, it was happening in the ayahuasca ceremony. We did another one in Gorton Monastery in Manchester,
But
and
she wasn't actually visibly pregnant before going into the ceremony. This is like an energetic
well, no, no,
thing
no,
that
she was big.
transpired,
She was big, you know. But
like like bloated big.
yeah, yeah, yeah. When she came into the ceremony, she actually took her bra off, and then she started ripping up her top, and that's when we kind of saw it. Yeah, up until that point, like she was covered up with clothing, but then once she started, and that's when something's going on. So that's when we had to deal with it. Yeah. Yeah, we had a lady in Gorton Monastery in Manchester. It's an amazing building built on these kind of Michael Mary ley lines, and you go into the middle of it and you just cry because it's just beautiful. But there was about 400 of us on the floor doing a breath work cacao routine, and this lady she was in so much pain. She said, "I've had pain in my kidneys for 20 years. I've never known what it was." So we looked and we saw there was like this parasite in there. So we took the parasite out, and her kidney pain went. 20 years of kidney pain, you know. So a lot of these things that people have, they're parasite related. A lot of physical injuries, a lot of physical symptoms, hip problems, joint problems. Yeah, it can be that down to
how
spec-
how would a person start to explore some of these concepts within themselves without reaching out to someone else? Is there a way that a person could be like, okay, like this sounds like some really wild and crazy shit, but I'll play and pretend and imagine like maybe there's something to this chronic back pain that I've had for 26 years. Maybe there's something hanging on to me. How could a person begin the process of starting to explore the energetic relationship of dis-ease or pain or dysfunction or addiction within their lives?
I think first of all, you've just got to, train yourself to be a little bit present. or a lot present, to get calm and present and be still, because it's in the stillness that things start to present themselves. So what I would do if I was training someone like a new person, I would say bring up your own hologram. So I would see like an energetic body that was kind of like just hollow, just like when people are dead on a movie and there's the chalk outline on the floor. So I'd see like the head and the arms and the body and the legs, and I would ask the person to entangle that with themselves. So in my case, I would say, "This is the hologram of Jerry Sargent," and I'd say it 3 times, three for creation, and once I've entangled that with myself, then I'm going to start to be able to see what is in that hologram. Whatever is showing up that needs to be worked on. So it could be that I saw a black kidney and a green kidney. I know there's something going on with the kidneys, and either the black one needs to be green or the green one needs to be black. And so I would just change it, and that would heal the kidney. If you're looking for parasites, then what I would do once the hologram was in the space, I would run a certain frequency through it. So we use this Andromedan frequency called kaleidoscopic chromium. And when I was journeying several years back, I was on a beach and got given this frequency by the Andromedans. And it's like a chrome bumper, but within it, it's like a kaleidoscope. So there's like a million pinks, a million oranges, a million greens, like every single color range and all the kind of diluted versions of that color range. So what happens is when you start to bring that kaleidoscopic chromium down through the crown of the hologram and then expand it through, if there's a parasite in there, it's going to present itself. What some parasites will do is try and shapeshift. So let's say you bring a golden light through the hologram, it can kind of withstand that golden light. But if you bring all of these different ranges of color, it will try and shift from one to the other and it won't be able to do it fast enough and you'll spot it. Once you spot it, we create like a grid system around the hologram, like say a smoky quartz pyramid. We'd infuse the pyramid with a code, and that code would be like a satellite navigation system. So once we take the parasite out of the body, we cut a hole in the smoky quartz pyramid, chuck the parasite through, and because the pyramid's been encoded, it'll go to whichever dimensional space it's supposed to go to, back to source, another space of learning. That's like the simplest way. It's just getting the right frequency in there, being very present and still, and just observing and being patient. And then once you see it, you see it. Then you can deal with it.
Hmm. Is that, I feel like probably for someone, if would this be something that someone could explore doing within themselves, like maybe try doing like a 10-minute meditation and
Absolutely.
explore something like that?
Yeah, I mean,
How this would there be any an even simpler version of exploration into that? Because I feel like some of that would be beyond probably a lot of people, be my guess.
well, first of all, if you're going to remove a parasite from a body, whether it's your own or someone else's, you need a grid around it, because if the parasite comes out, it can just scarper, and then it's back in the field. So this is what a lot of shamans do. It's what a lot of healers do. I mean, there's a lot of healers that don't even want to face this stuff, but a lot of them they won't dispose of the parasites properly. So you've got to have the grid around it. Otherwise, it's just out there and it can, it's back in the game. So you've got to take it out and you've got to have the grid and you've got to have the code. If you wanted to just go in and take it out, you could do, but then you're just passing one problem on to someone else.
Jump over to your sister.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah. So I mean, for me, that is just a very basic way of doing it. And once you show people how it works, then they get it straight away. It's not hard. It sounds like a lot when you first hear it, but actually, you've got a hologram, a pyramid, and a code and a
Are
frequency.
are you able to detect anything within me? Are you, is that how it works? Can you like tap into fields and things from afar, or is that not a part of your what you
Yeah,
do?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I can bring up your hologram now.
All right.
I mean, so if I bring up your hologram now, and I'm going to run Chromium through it, I'm going to expand it, and as I'm looking for shadow parasites, you've got none, nothing in there, no parasites. Yeah, yeah, no shadow parasites.
Is there anything else that you see within my hologram?
For some reason, your left collarbone or shoulders coming up, and it looks to me, it looks like a bluey color. If I compare it to your right shoulder collarbone, which is like a browny color, so there's something that you're carrying on the right shoulder. So if I right now, what I'll do is I'm just going to bring. So we have different codes for different frequencies. So what I'm going to do is bring a frequency in through your body called HF15. So it's a dolphin frequency. So I'm just going to bring it up above your crown now. It's like a golden crystal white light. So I'm just going to spiral it around up above your crown. I'm going to bring it down. It's coming down now through your crown, down through your third eye. I'm going to expand it through your head and face and bring it into your throat, and then just move it into your right shoulder. I'll run it all the way down your right arm as well. Just let it flow. And I'll just run it until the brown's gone. And when I'm doing this, what I'm picking up is on rejection trauma. On the father side, I'm seeing 3 different past lives. It's half cleared. And as this is running, I'm seeing an arrow in your heart. And it's another past life. You've been shot in the heart. I'm just asking actually, is it metaphorical? No, it's not metaphorical. You actually got shot in the heart. So I'm just going to take this arrow out of your heart. I'm just going to pull it out of my hands and just twist it and pull it out. It's gone. I'll just dispose of that. I'm just going to turn the frequency up coming down through your crown and run it through your shoulder. And I'm just being told to look at your knees as well, because the knees are interesting, because Mother Earth is magnetic and she's always pulling toxicity out from our body energetically, and a lot of stuff gets stuck in the knees. So I'm just going to put my hands over your right and left knee, and I'm just going to run what we call Egyptian clearing pyramids in through your knees. Two are going to come in your left knee, 2 in your right knee, and they're just going to whiz around the inside of your knees and just clear up this toxicity. I'm just going to pull them back out. They're coming out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run that dolphin frequency straight down through your central column, down through your heart, through your spinal column, into your perineum, and then spread it into your hips and run it through your thighs and your hamstrings, down through your knees. I'm just going to amplify it. And just as we're coming down through your knees and into your calves, shins, down through your ankles, through your feet, I'm just seeing on your left ankle like an ankle cuff. Again, if it's from a past life as you were female and you were put in prison. Yeah, it was in Turkey in the Ottoman times when they had harems and stuff. I'm just going to undo that and take it off. It's gone. Just keep running that frequency for a moment. Yeah, body's looking really clear. There's little bits and pieces that just keep flashing here and there, like your right hip. So run the frequency into that. It's all clearing, but just little bits and pieces coming up. But yeah, I'm just going to stop that frequency now and close it down.
Thank you for taking time to do that.
Sorry, bro.
Is I said thank you for taking the time to
Oh,
do
you're
that.
welcome, man.
The Is that something that any person could have access to or develop within themselves? And if so,
Absolutely.
what would be the journey of embarking? If someone's kind of metaphysical curious, what would be the journey of starting to explore and kind of open up some of those what would be conceived to be maybe like superpowers?
Yeah, I mean, just to give people an idea, like many, many years ago, I was a kid from the streets that used to smuggle drugs. And, I was involved in lots of colorful activities through my early years up until about 25. And then I stumbled across this path. So if I can go from the world that I was in, a complete and utter non-believer, to what I'm doing now, anybody can. But the path, I mean, we train people in this. We have a 5 day training, and in that 5 day training, you can walk away doing all this stuff. It's not hard. Like a lot of people think, oh, the field, I can't see it, blah blah blah. But when you take people through a process, it awakens something inside of them. Like what I always say to people is this: I can't teach you anything, but I can help you remember. And so, like everything that I know, you know. Everything you know, I know on some level, and everything everyone knows, everyone knows. So we're just kind of, we're guides for other people to help them remember, to help them wake up. And yeah, it involves coming for 5 days and doing some meditation, some activations, and doing lots of demonstrations, practicing with you, showing you the best way for you to tap the field. Some people see, some people they feel, some people just know things. Some people are all three, some people are two. There are days when I see a little bit less, and there's days when I see a lot more, and there's days when I just feel something. So it's just about being extremely present and letting these kind of psychic multi-dimensional abilities kind of just be there in the space, and you can just pick up the info.
Yeah, I think a lot of this, like I've done body work for a long time. I mean, long is relative, but like 18, 19 years or so. And in doing that, and then I've been training people, before that. But with the body work stuff in particular, now at this point with working with people, a lot of what I'm doing really just does feel like intuitive. But that's after lots and lots of time of repetition and pattern recognition and things of the sort. So it's hard for me sometimes to differentiate like what is like genuinely intuitive and what is just layers and layers of pattern recognition, and maybe they're all kind of conflated together. But something that I personally notice with myself is I'll almost get like a I'll get like words will pop up for me, or like messages, and it'll just be like a very clear distinct message, like, oh, like work on the hip, or like do this, or like a very clear distinct message will come up of like something about their childhood, or something about like, oh, like there's something with their mother. And sometimes I say stuff, sometimes I don't. I think something that's important within that realm, if you're starting to enter into that realm, especially if you're new to that realm, is to be able to step back and take pause and reflect on what is projection, like what is mine and what is theirs. Because I think that's something that can happen. Someone can become like kind of like spiritually arrogant, and like whatever I imagine is true to you, but you could just be very clouded and chaotic and disorganized within yourself, and you're getting all these messages, but it actually has nothing to do with the person beside you. But that I think that was maybe too much words and explanation of something maybe that wasn't so important. But the, I think I think identifying the way that Jerry experiences something might not be the way that Lisa experiences something, might not be, and different people have different like voyances. I think you could say maybe some's clairvoyant, some's more like touch, some, and there's different, some's audio, some's visual. And so that is something that I think is kind of interesting, is each person does have certain voyances that are more or less powerful than others, I believe. Do you think there's anything to that?
100%. And the thing is as well, each of them can be interpreted in different ways. So we're in Sedona and we're doing a training, and there was a lady that was there, and she had diverticulitis in her belly. And I was watching what was going on, and there was a guy working on her. Now, in the guy's mind and in his vision, what he saw in her belly was loads of popcorn. Loads of popcorn. So what he did is he got an imaginary like popcorn container like you get at the cinema, and he put it under the belly, and all the popcorn started coming out. So that now this carton is full of popcorn. So what he does is he starts feeding it to her energetically, and the diverticulitis cleared up. When I watched it, I saw fish swimming around in the stomach. And so what I did, as I what I would have done is I would have put a fish tank underneath and scooped all the fish out and put them in the fish tank, and then probably cooked them and fed them to her. But it would have got the same result. Like we all interpret reality in a different way. So if you ask the universe, we always ask the question, please show me something I don't know. because it opens up the field. Star magic isn't a system. Like if someone comes to me today and they say, "Oh, I've got liver cancer," and his name's John, then the next week Dave comes along and says, "Oh, I've got liver cancer." I'm not going to do the same thing. I'm going to ask the question, "Please show me something I don't know," because both of these humans have different experiences in this lifetime, different soul records, different galactic records. So I have to go in and treat them completely differently, even though it's the same disease, same part of the body, etc., etc. Now, coming back to this example, the man saw it one way, I saw it another way, but both get the same result. And what happens is the universe, when we say ask the question, please show me something I don't know, what it does is it presents the information to us in a way that our logical mind can comprehend it. So a lady once, she was in hospital and all of her throat clear was like blocked. And they were going to turn off the machine because they said, we can't feed her anymore. We just can't keep her in hospital for this long. And she's not getting any better. She was old, and her daughter or granddaughter got in contact and said, please, can you help? I said, yeah, no problem. So I've asked the universe, please show me something I don't know to help me facilitate this healing. And the first thing I saw is a frog. And then I see the frog spit some venom. So I got a jar and caught the venom in the jar. And then a blue light came down from space. So I asked, what should I do with this? I got stir it up. So I stirred it up, and then I got a big syringe. I took the syringe I took the syringe, took the liquid up into the syringe, stuck it in the back of the lady's neck in a hologram, injected it. Next day, her throat clears up and she gets out of hospital. I was telling this story to to a shaman, and he was telling me that in Native American medicine, the frog is throat medicine, and I never knew that. But somehow the universe knew that I needed to get this frog medicine and inject it into this lady's neck, whatever the blue light was that came down from space, some kind of code that was needed for the healing. So the frog is code, the jar is code, the syringe is code, but for the human brain, it's much easier to see it as something logical, and you just play with that.
If we were to play like in a westernized materialistic culture, um, the idea of an allopathic doctor is very easy. Everything is measured and managed, and you have a scalpel, and you look at it, and you do the surgery. How would one define a shaman or this other form of medicine that exists? Like, if you were to describe like what is shaman, like what is a shaman?
I mean, I would have to leave that to the shamans to describe themselves. But for me, like I would call myself a facilitator. I mean, on our website, I'm an energy healer, but that's just good for marketing. Like really nobody can heal anybody else. If anyone says to you, "Oh, I can heal you," they're lying. But what you can do is hold really good space, and you can play around in the field, and you can create an environment so the body's natural healing mechanisms switch on. So, what I would call myself is a facilitator that comes into your space and says, "Hey, bro, what's going on? Lie down, chill, relax, sit down, and just breathe and let me work." And what I would do is just open up the field and see what information came and start playing around with it, asking good questions, changing the reality fields, and until I got to the point where the human being's field, it just starts to shift and the energy starts to flow. Yeah, it's. I think that's the best way I can describe it.
What is an exorcism, and how, if someone could use a little exercising, is there like a ratio of people that could use a little exercising in their lives if you were to walk around New York City? Or is it kind of like if someone actually is holding an entity within them and that needs to be exercised out or could be exercised out, are they like spitting and yelling and it's very, very clear that like, oh my God, there's like an entity in this body?
Yeah, I mean, you get all different scenarios. So sometimes you'll be working on someone and you'll see this real sleepy entity that's just in the body somewhere, and you can just pull it out, and the person's pain goes away. They didn't know they had an entity, and you weren't even sure until you started working. There are some people that go crazy, like spitting, scratching, clawing, pulling hair, like just going nuts. Um, when someone has an entity inside of them, when you shine a lot of light, we see it a lot in our workshops. So we'll have a big bunch of people meditating. You start running the frequency and amplifying it. People start twitching. They start doing all this funny kind of like light language, like spitting, not nice light language. It's kind of ferocious, like harsh, disgusting stuff. And it's the entity trying to speak poison into the space because it doesn't like the light. And so we grid up our spaces. And if there's an entity in someone's body, you'll see it after a certain time flags, it can't take the light. And because we've got it gridded, it'll get trapped in the room. Once it gets trapped in the room, we'll go and collect it and then do what we need to do to get rid of it. There's all different types. I mean, not everybody needs an exorcism. I would only do an exorcism or what we call a shadow parasite cleanse if someone has a shadow parasite. If someone just needs a healing, they need a healing. You also get like different kind of extremes to this too. I've worked with ladies that have been in a Masonic lodge, 2, 3 years old, and they've watched another baby's head get cut off in front of them, and then they're stuck in a coffin for days with snakes and spiders. They get taken out and then abused by 30, 40 men in black cloaks. This is a whole different level of programming because when a human being goes through that, they often have parasites, but what they have is real deep nasty programming that's embedded in the base of their cranium, and that takes weeks or months sometimes to kind of like defrag and actually release them from that.
What
Yes,
you
there's
just what you just said is a real thing. The Masonic Lodge
yeah. If you
baby cutoff snake.
yeah, if you go to our website, you see the lady talking about it, doing the testimonial. I could tell you some crazy stories, man. Yeah.
There's a TED talk of this woman talking about that her experience with this.
Hmm. Okay.
No, I'm asking. Is that what you said?
Oh no no no
She's
no on our website. I thought you said it was a TED talk. No 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 on
no.
our
I thought you
website.
said TED talk.
No, no, no. On our website, this is a lady that I worked with several years ago. What happened is, this is how crazy it was because I was just walking down the road one day and my phone rang, and it was a withheld number, and I never really answer like unknown numbers, but something told me to pick it up, and I answered it, and it's this lady. She was living in America at the time, but she came from a Welsh, really wealthy banking family, and she'd been put into this abuse. Her son was now in it, and she said, I really need your help. She said, I'm coming to England soon. I'm escaping. And anyway, she kind of escaped, and they literally closed all her bank accounts. They just completely tried to destroy her. I ended up meeting up with her and worked with her for several weeks and got her clear. Yeah, it's a
Wow.
process.
Holy crap. Why does evil exist on the planet? What is this, what seems like kind of like spiritual warfare, Star Wars thing that may or may not be existing in the invisible plane of reality? What is the point of
Yeah,
all of that?
energy. It's been existing for eons, and it's all about energy. For millions of years, even more than millions, billions of years, multiple planets, multiple star systems, the the whole galaxy and beyond has been warring over territory, over energy, over stargates, over crystals, gold, different commodities. A lot of those commodities are physical human commodities. And so right now on planet Earth, and it has been for a very, very, very long time, this kind of intergalactic, multi-dimensional, multi-leveled war that's been going on for so long is playing out on Earth. We've got all these different colors and races on Earth. We've got Chinese people, American people, English people, Irish people, French people, and this is just like as above, so below. Like throughout the galaxy, you've got all these species, and the multiverse. Here on planet Earth, you've got all these species. The game that's been played for a very, very long time has been played out on planet Earth, and the main game on planet Earth is the game of the stargates. We have stargates which enable multi-dimensional, interdimensional travel. That's what's happening in Iran at the moment. It's not being fought for money, religion, power, gold, none of that sort of stuff. It's over the Iranian gateway. They got one of the main stargates which links into the Iraqi stargate. So yeah, they're fighting over these gateways. They blew up Lebanon a few years ago, and that was because of the Stargate in Lebanon. It's always about the gateways. Anywhere you look where there's a major war, there's gateways. When they went into Basra, like weapons of mass destruction, the US military surrounded the library, they didn't go and help the civilians. There were people being slaughtered and butchered. But what did they do? They went into the library because the cuneiform tablets were buried, well, not buried there, but they were underneath there. And the cuneiform tablets have Stargate access codes. So they wanted to retrieve them. It's always about the gateways. Yeah, but I look at it in a multifaceted way too, because even though that is one thing that's happening and taking place in our worldly environment on a galactic level, this world, this planetary environment is like a training ground. They send souls here that are highly trained. You don't just get to come to planet Earth unless you've really accomplished something, because they know once you come down to Earth, you're going to have your memory blank slated, you're going to forget everything, and you've got to find your way back home. With all the stresses, with all the stuff that's going on, it's a really tough training ground. If you wanted to send someone into the military in England, you send them to the SAS. In the US, the Navy SEALs. It's where the best of the best go. The best of the best souls come to planet Earth to train, find their way back home, elevate their consciousness in a training ground that is extremely tough. And there's other reasons we're here too. There's so many layers to this playing field.
Hmm. What is a how do when you are seeing an aura in someone's body? What is that? What are the colors emanated from the body, or like that, like the aspects of the body beyond what people see as the physical? What is an aura?
Well, I think, or I don't think, like the auric field is part of the energetic body. So you want your auric field to be beautiful, like smooth, no blemishes in it. Some people's auric fields look like they're scraped and scratched and not very nice. But if this auric field thing is a really important topic of discussion, because if you look at children that are coming onto the planet now, their auric field's on the inside of their body. They don't have it on the outside, because when it's on the outside, it can be manipulated. So what we train people to do is to keep our aura on the inside. It takes a bit of practice because it keeps wanting to come out because it's so used to being out. But we keep it on the inside. We have our light body. We've got our Merkaba field. We've got an octahedron. We've got a multi-dimensional Merkaba field. We've got a cylinder, a pillar that runs through us. We've got a toroidal field. There's so many elements to our multi-dimensional architecture, and the auric field is just one piece of it. But the light body is what enables the physical body to be healthy. If you haven't got a stabilized light body and everything's kind of flowing properly, a human being's gonna suffer.
Hmm. Interesting. How could a person begin to work with their own light body? Would it be the same suggestions as before, or there be a way to specifically work within the auric field of the self?
So there's some really simple things you can do with this, because like we're stardust. If you've got something going on with your head and you want to kind of sort it out, you can connect to Aries, the constellation of Aries, feet Pisces, nervous system Ophiuchus. Like each body part links to a different nervous system. When it comes to the auric templates and the light body field, if you wanted to activate your Merkaba field, which is two tetrahedrons, you've got a male one, which is the top one, and a female one, which is the bottom one. The male one spins clockwise and the female one spins anti-clockwise. So if you connect to the constellation of Sirius and say, listen, I want to activate my Merkaba field, the light will come down through Mother Earth's atmosphere, down through the skies, and it will lock in to your top tetrahedron. It will start to spin it at the correct rotational spin. And if you connect to the constellation of Orion and tell it you want to activate your Merkaba field, it will come into the female tetrahedron, the bottom one, and it will start to spin anti-clockwise. The female one will spin much faster than the male one. And what happens, it spins faster and faster, and it will turn into a beautiful sphere. Yeah, very, very simple. You can just switch that on.
Would one have to have a relationship with Orion or any of that, or could a person just play pretend and imagine and use the words and use the intention and be able to do that in a similar way to someone that has more confidence in what they're doing?
Yeah, anyone can do it, but I wouldn't say play
Well,
pretend.
for a person that's like, this I don't, I don't believe
Like this is
this. For
BS.
them, it would be like
Yes,
the only way to do that would be to play pretend for that person, is what
yes,
I'm
that's what you
speaking to.
mean. Yeah. So if
Yeah.
someone was skeptical, you could say, listen, close your eyes, open your heart, and just set an intention. Like our words are very powerful. our intention is very powerful. Our words, our thoughts, our feelings, they're all spells. Like 24/7, we're spelling our environment. And some people spell it negatively, some people spell it positively. And if you say, listen, I'm connecting to the constellation of Sirius and I'm activating my Merkaba field right now, boom. Consciousness travels at the speed of light squared, 34.7 billion miles per second. So as soon as you say that, boom, the light's already there in your field.
Hmm. Where do you gather information like that? Consciousness moves at the speed of light squared.
Just the field. And I've had a couple of really, really good people in my life. The lady that I worked with when I was younger, that I told you about, the past life regression business, she taught me so much, so much. I mean, when I was with her, I must have gone into, I don't know, hundreds of my parallel incarnations. And through all of those journeys, I learned a lot. In 2009, I was living in New Zealand for a few years, and I was meditating in my friend's copper pyramid in his garden, and a little spacecraft landed in the garden. I brought my light out of my body, went and got inside, and we flew through a portal to Alpha Centauri, where I met my Lyran family, and they downloaded loads of information into me. When I moved back from New Zealand, I spent 9 months in ancient mystery schools with my son in the field in a light body form, sitting in classrooms, being shown how to use codes to heal and just different pieces of information about stargates, about Egypt and the temple structures and how to operate the stargates in the pyramids. Yeah.
So you were abducted would be like colloquial language for that. Is that is
So
that appropriate language?
so when I was a kid, I actually did get abducted. And taken in a spacecraft in my dream time. I didn't realize it until much later on, and the memories bled through. But in this particular case, I wouldn't say abducted. No, I willfully brought my light out of my body because I've been trained to do that, and went and jumped inside the space pod. There was a blue being there, and a Lyran. He kind of operated the craft with his consciousness. Well, I say he was androgynous. It was androgynous, but it doesn't sound right saying it. But anyway, um, we flew through the portal and out the other side, and yeah, I went willingly. And when I went there, I met my whole Lyran family, hundreds of them, and they hugged me, and I never felt so much love in all my life. And then afterwards, they took me through this jungle area to a big pyramid, and in there, I had to kneel on the floor and had this big download of geometry, and that's what became star magic. Yeah.
Hmm. Who are the reptile people that we hear about in certain places?
So reptilians are interesting because they've got a bad name, but actually, there are some really beautiful reptilians. Very, very, very beautiful species of reptilians. But there's one faction that are not very nice. I've met them. I met one in human form around 2005. Me and my friends were really curious, and we were just getting on this spiritual journey. And everyone was talking about the end of the Mayan calendar, 2012. And my friend said to me, listen, Jerry, there's a guy giving a talk in Basingstoke, which is 30, 40 minutes outside of London. So we decided to go down there, me and my two pals, in the evening time. Went down there to this little dated bungalow. And we're sat in this guy's front room. There's a few other people that have turned up, and he's giving a talk. And we're listening and we're riveted. And we're like, this is, we're just green and new to this stuff. And then I asked him a question. And he looked at me. It was a bit of a contradictory question. He didn't really like it. Anyway, he looked at me and his human face just disappeared. And when his human face disappeared, I just saw this big green lizard staring at me. And he held my stare for, I don't know, 4 or 5 seconds, which seemed like an eternity because I was trying to like look cool. But on the inside, I was like, what the heck is this, man? So that was the first time I encountered one. My daughter got pulled off her horse. I was in Turkey. She got pulled off of a horse by two reptilians and they started eating her womb in broad daylight. And she phoned me, and I managed to come into the space from Turkey and get them off. And yeah, like her menstrual cycles were off for, I don't know, a long time. Yeah, they've come right now, but they're off for a long time. I've had lots of encounters with these things. Um, you've got the reptilians and you've got the Draco reptilians. The Draco reptilians are the ones that have sort of led the battle throughout the universe for a long time. The reptilians are subservient to the Draco reptilians. I had a guy that I interviewed years ago who worked in Area 51, and when he was in Area 51, he saw a Draco reptilian holding up a reptilian by his throat just with one hand, like giving it a bit of a roasting. Yeah, they live underground. They live on other planets. Some of them are in the space. Some of them are in human bodies. There's a lot of soulless people on this earth that have been completely, they're not like real humans. They're like in like a meat suit, but there's no soul in there, and these reptilians kind of shapeshift into them.
Would that be like a psychopath? Would
Not necessarily.
that be like westernized language for a psychopath, possibly?
It could be, but not always. Some psychopaths, have got just some kind of normal parasite in them. Some psychopaths are a little bit just mental because of whatever they've experienced. What I would say is a lot of people that are in mental hospitals are people that are very, very awake, or they've had some kind of like spontaneous awakening and seen something wild and out there, and they've told their doctors, and the doctors have said you should be locked up. Because it's not they're just seeing things in the field that are completely normal. Like as I said earlier, this space is so rich and bountiful. There's so much in it, but we're just not exposed to it. So when people see it, it's shocking to
Yeah.
see people.
And then there's also, you know, like people that are experiencing manic episodes where it just seems like the frequency that they're tapped into is like scrambled, and it feels like there's like a fracture that I would presume is maybe like trauma based. I don't, I don't, I'm not, that's not like my profession to identify that type of stuff, but like that, it's an interesting thing, like parsing out what is the difference between genuine damage and fracture and what is actually like a gift that we just don't happen to live in a culture tuned up or honed in to be able to like cultivate that gift.
Yeah, I think like it depends when you catch the person, when you catch the human being. Like if someone has had some kind of spontaneous awakening, if I was around them, I could get them sorted really quickly and calm them down and help them understand what's going on. But usually it's too late and they've gone to, tell a whole bunch of people who thought they're crazy and they called the hospital on them. Um, you
What do you
know,
think? Have you seen the stuff with Liver King on IG threatening Joe Rogan?
nah, not seen that. No, I know who Liver King
Yeah.
is. Yeah, but I've not
Oh
seen
yeah.
what happened there.
He's like spun off into some type of manic episode, and he's sharing all of his just daily experiences, and he's been threatening Joe Rogan for the last couple weeks, and he was arrested, and now he's got like a collar around his ankle, and he's still posting and sharing, but he's um, clearly very confused, and it's like very sad to witness. And I just have a tremendous amount of compassion for him. Like it almost makes me like weepy just to observe. And my sense is that probably, hopefully, there's people around him protecting him right now. But my sense, since they are like posting and sharing all of this, there's probably some parasitic energy around him. I would imagine. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
I think
but
in any of these situations, you have to love people.
yeah,
Like whatever's going on, you can't turn around and start pointing the finger and blaming and judging. I mean, they need love, but they also need someone that is an expert in the field to help them move through it.
yeah. Um, I really enjoy these conversations, man. Thank you for uh, for being the person that you are, being able to share this information. Is there anything else that would be supportive to share before wrapping things up, and also where people can find you and things of the like?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I'm just deeply grateful that you invited me on to be with you in this space and share with your community. And yeah, if anybody wants to check us out, starmagichealing.org. You'll get access to Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all of our tools. There's loads of free stuff, paid stuff, all different things. We got an app, trainings. So yeah, you can just reach out. One of our team can jump on the phone with you, tell you all about what's going on, and yeah, just come in and do a free meditation and see what you think of the frequency, and yeah, just connect. And I would just say to everybody listening, we're in crazy times on this planet, but beautiful crazy times, and it's a time for massive expansion, huge awakening, and the most important thing is to bring ourselves into alignment, into balance. Bring that masculine, feminine, shadow and light, just alchemize it down to 0 point, and live from your heart. And don't judge, point the finger, love everybody, and just keep fit, keep strong, keep healthy, and just love the ride. Yeah.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. That is it. That is all. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you next week.